UFO Round Table, the UFO Thinker and Pursuit of the Paranormal podcasts.
Okay, so hello and welcome back to another monthly Roundup Round Table where we discuss all things UFOs and UAP related that have been going on recently. My name's Frank, UFO Thinker Podcast, and newly affiliated with Calling All Beings as well these days. And I'm joined, as always, by Ash and Greg. How are we doing, chaps?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad. Keeping going, chipping away, and soldering
it's
on.
Cold. Love that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very cold. Just about keeping warm. How about you, Ash? You all right, mate?
Yeah, good. Trying to keep warm. See my breath when I breathe, but yeah, apart from that,
that's it. So obviously, Ash, founder of UFOidentified.co.uk, and Greg, paranormal researcher and investigator, and together they are the co-hosts of the Pursuit of the Paranormal podcast. And
wow.
Yeah.
I'm taking that as an intro.
There you go, yeah. Clip it. Job's a good one. So we're also joined today, once again, by UK UAP on Twitter, the Fire Crusader, the UFO Bookworm, the all-round top geezer, Ash. How you doing, mate?
Hi, Frank. Yeah, very good. Thanks, mate. And thanks for having me back here again. Really looking forward to having a good chat with you guys tonight. It's making a nice break into my day here. So, yeah, I've been looking forward to it.
That's it. First round table of the year as well. And for the purposes of clarity, we've already decided before hitting record that we're going to say Ash Ellis for the usual co-host Ash and just Ash for UK UAP Ash. So hopefully we all remember to stick to that. We'll see how it goes.
I'll try and remember that as well.
Right.
If all else fails, just shout "Oi!" Someone will answer.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. It should be a good laugh anyway. And once again, we're also joined by the one, the only, crypto-terrestrial specialist, the researcher and analyst, also sometimes known as the Ghost of UFOs Present, the inimitable Dave Smethurst. How are you today,
That's
mate?
The best one yet, that, Frank. Very good. Yeah. I can just tell you all, I've been doing my tax returns today. I've nearly finished them now. So I'm not in the best of moods. So just think about that. I think grammatically we might have a problem if I say, and what do you think, Ash Ellis? It might start sounding a bit rude, that might it, in certain grammatical contexts. But anyway, grammar's never been my strong point, so we'll brush over that.
It's like when you've been naughty at school and the teacher tells you your full name, including your surname. You know you've done something wrong then, don't you?
I throw in the middle name. That's the score for the whole hawk.
Yeah, so obviously we've got a few bits that we're going to be talking about. But something that's basically pretty much just happened today is this the Mosul Orb. And so it's obviously a story that's been kind of broken on Jeremy Corbell's new podcast, Weaponized, using his kind of his classic phrase of weaponize your curiosity. And he's got this new podcast with George Knapp, and the first episode actually came out sort of overnight, and it's pretty much just been a case of everyone's been talking about this Mosul Orb on Twitter today. I haven't really had a chance to look at it too much. It's usually the case that when we've got a roundtable planned, something happens on the day we're about to record. And as usual, I've been at work all day. But I did manage to check out the episode when I was in the car, and I have seen the actual image itself. And just interested before we get into the other topics to see what you guys think of the picture in general. And obviously there's been an article that's come out in the Daily Mail as well, talking about the same picture and some of the background to it. And I suppose orbs in general, really, because it is quite it's one of the common UAP reported shapes. And so, Ash Ellis, we'll start with you, mate. What do you reckon? Because I was interested to see what you think of this one and also how it ties in with other orb sightings that you might have seen and in your database and whatnot. So what do you reckon?
Yeah. Here they come to me first. It always seems to feel like I put a downer on things because the way I interpret pictures and stuff. And like you, I've not really had much chance to look into it. Been at work all day. Greg sent me like a screenshot of the picture. So I've been this is based off looking at a screenshot of the image. So it's not been the best. I'm looking at it now as we're talking, trying to read the Daily Mail article. I mean, it's not much, is it? I mean, at first I was like, I didn't even know what I was looking at. I didn't know where I was supposed to be looking because I thought the blob was on the floor. And obviously realised that's what they're referring to. They're saying like it's a sphere, but it's blurring out of focus. You can't make out a shape from that image. If you saw the video with it, I think that's what you sort of really need to be able to do any sort of analysis on it. But for me, it's blurry, out of focus. Like I said, at first I thought it was on the floor because that's just how it looked. But now, looking at it now, it is because the background's in focus and this is blurry and not in focus. That implies it's closer to the camera. And if this is from, is it a satellite or a drone that's took this picture? I'm not sure.
I think it's some kind of I forget the exact name, but it's a surveillance aircraft of some type. I'm not sure if it's a drone or just a conventional aircraft.
Like
but yeah,
spy plane.
Some kind of spy plane.
Yeah, it says intelligence recon plane.
Sounds like a drone. I think that
does. Yeah.
So if this is going to be high up, it's going to be zoomed in on, obviously, to get sort of how close it is to the houses. So if this is zoomed in on something that's close up to the camera, then that's going to be even smaller of an object. So if this is just something that's small bug insect that's flying past the camera that's zoomed in, it's blurry, out of focus, probably got motion blur as well. I don't know. I'm just thinking it just looks like nothing to me. You expect it with. I mean, I put a post on Twitter saying clickbait Corbell. Maybe that's a bit premature. I don't know, but that's the only thing I've sort of mentioned it so far. But yeah, to me, you can't take much of it. You can't really call it a sphere. I can't even say the word. A circular object because it's blurry. You can't tell it's a shape. You can't tell if it is in the air. It could possibly be on the floor. That's my initial thoughts on it. And again, Daily Mail article, making a lot of it, a lot of sort of implications about sort of knowing what it is, taking a lot, maybe jumping a little bit at the gun a little bit with some of the wording, possibly, and some of the people on Twitter and stuff that I've seen, just reading now, sort of jumping the gun a bit without sort of knowing any more about it. But that's just my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I'll go into a little bit about some of my thoughts in a minute as well. But just actually before I forget, I'll just had a quick look while you were talking. It's the MC-12 spy plane. So I'm not exactly sure if that's something with pilots on board or whether it is a drone type thing. But that's the plane anyway, just in case anybody was wondering. But how does that kind of thing relate to things that you get reported? Do you get many spheres like that reported across the UK?
Yeah, you do get quite a few, and I think the difference is this has been caught on military tech. It's been caught on military surveillance. John, looking at it now, it is a manned aircraft, that MC-12.
Right.
So, like orbs, like I say, are very popular. Sighting reported in the UK last year, there were 80 reports out of nearly 500 that were orbs. So probably it's the second most common reported object in the UK last year was an orb shape. So yeah, it is very similar. And again, if this was caught on someone's Ring camera, you see a lot of them type images like this on Ring cameras or just normal phone cameras, very similar objects. You don't get any light of day. Obviously, because it is on a military plane, it does lend more credence to it being more popular just for that reason. But to me, there's nothing different in this than there is on what you'd see on the Facebook group and look at UFO photos. There's nothing to really make it stand out when you're comparing it.
Yeah, I think some of that background information in terms of just the fact that it is from like a military plane, instinctively you sort of think that there's going to be something more to it than that. But I think
I've not had a chance to actually read about the full thing yet, so it might be a bit premature, but that based on the initial reaction to it.
Yeah, of course, mate, and it's always good to get your take on it, absolutely. But I think we're all in the same boat. I mean, it's literally just dropped today, and everybody's been trying to... I mean, me personally, I've said this about these kinds of things in the past. I quite enjoy it, really, the frenzy of everyone trying to figure out what's going on, skeptics and debunkers weighing in, and everybody's got a theory. As long as you don't sort of stick your flag in the sand and say, right, this is what I think, and anybody who's against me, you know what I mean? It's actually quite interesting to see it all unfold. When I first saw it, I saw that somebody had posted a somebody Flarky on Twitter is like a kind of a skeptic investigator. He'd managed to geolocate the exact spot on the map. Apparently, there were some coordinates left on the image, and he'd found the exact location. And there was like a kind of a black smudge type thing in the exact area where the sphere type thing, is in the actual picture that's been released. So a lot of people immediately started saying, well, it could well be a hole in the ground that's got water in it on this particular day, and then it's showing reflections. But then there were other debunkers like Mick West, everyone's favourite, who basically went through the focus settings and whatnot and was able to figure out that, in his opinion, it wasn't on the ground, it was actually in the mid-ground, like you said, Ash, because otherwise, if it was on the ground, it would have looked a little bit differently on the camera because of the focus and that kind of thing. And then obviously he started going into various theories about balloons and things like that, like metallic balloons and whatnot. But I think one of the things that I sort of took on board with it is the image just being a still from a bigger video, and I think that is the key thing, and that's what kind of you were saying there. Whatever we think it is, that video would be key, and I'm not so 100% sure exactly if Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp have that video, or if they've just been sent a still. Perhaps they actually trust the person who sent it, and they have verified that they have seen the actual the rest of the footage, because that would be the key thing. I mean, especially if there's the full footage clearly shows the object moving and it's doing something that couldn't be a balloon or something like that. All of a sudden, it becomes a lot more interesting. But yeah, it's we're just going to have to wait and see. As I say, I quite enjoy seeing it all unfold. It's intriguing. It's a bit of a mystery. But yeah, I think there's still pieces of the puzzle to come together yet on this still. But did you want to say something there, Greg?
Yeah, I was just to add that when I'd obviously screen grabbed it, I sent it to Ash earlier, and he was obviously downplaying it as normal. And but it said that there is a still from a 4-second full motion video clip, which apparently shows it for 1 second as it flies alongside the spy plane. So it would suggest that it's a lot higher up than just near the floor. But like you say, the image is probably says more of what it's not than what it is. It's one of those ones where it just asks or gives more questions out than it answers. And like you've just said, it could be some water in a hole, or it could even be somebody just mobile phone and it's just caught the wrong bit of light, for example, like caught a lens reflection or a sun flare off someone's camera on the floor, where it's just like a mirrored reflection. Could be anything. And I think the fact that they've released that photograph, it's almost pointless from my point of view, because it's just sensationalized Jeremy Corbell's new podcast, if nothing else. And I think that's my take on it. Is it's practically not even worth sort of publishing a photo, apart from getting that clickbait for Jeremy Corbell. But
so go on, Dave, what we saying, mate? You got anything to add?
For me to disagree with the two august gentlemen who are sitting there. I mean, at least you never stuck the boot into him, Ash, until you read it properly, didn't you? You kept your counsel.
You said you're in a bad mood.
No, that's right. Yeah. You've already texted him saying it's all clickbait. Anyway, I'm only joking. I thought it was pretty good, actually. I looked at it. It was tracked by a military plane. It was pretty close. I watched Corbell and them go through it. They have got the footage. It's a 4-second footage. Looking at it, it looks like it's tracking the plane. So when we see the video, we might see that. I personally thought the image was pretty good. And the blurry bit was around the edges, which would imply some sort of field propulsion, which you often see with these things. So I didn't think it was too bad myself. There's been a lot of talk about it on Twitter just this afternoon, sort of ruling out that it's an object on the ground and that it's something else, that it's a hole. So that's pretty good. I actually thought it was quite distinct, and it reminded me of a few other things. It reminded me of the Splashdown one. in that photograph, that where they say splash. And we've seen a few of those orbs in very different settings. So I actually thought it was pretty good. And because it's from a military plane, if they can verify it and they can verify the data, which I'm going on the assumption they can, and it's not some sort, I don't think, didn't look like water to me. I mean, Wes said it was a metallic mylar balloon, water, parallax. It was like some sort of updated version of the Men in Black thing from Tommy Lee Jones, swamp gas, this, that, all the modern cobblers that he comes out with. Although that's not to say those explanations of cobblers on its own, but it just sounded like he was reaching to me anyway. So I personally think I did quite like it, and I think the early efforts to debunk it have not been that successful. And I think if it checks out, it could be pretty significant, because if it is a proper object of that size, I mean, we clearly think there's some sort of reconnaissance vehicle, so they've got a reconnaissance function. That seems to be where people are going. And if it is moving, it's got no means of propulsion. What is it? It's pretty, and it's on military equipment. It's not somebody snapping it, who we don't know. So I think it could be quite significant myself. So I would disagree, but then again, I've not got the on-the-ground experience. But I was pretty impressed with it, and I was sort of thought they were right to put it out. Because if you watch the podcast, it was a bit of an opening podcast, and they're teasing us a little bit with, with what the clips they've got. But listening to them, they've got quite a lot of information which they're going to put out, so it could get quite interesting. And it is an interesting thing, because we got into that a bit, didn't we? Clickbait. Was it just after Christmas? And I'm more serious now. I'm joking. It's when, I think he's entitled to promote his show, Cabell, and make it interesting. It's just whether, and he is a bit of a showman, but I think it could be quite a good show, this, and it'll get eyes on the subject. I suppose it's whether there's exploitation going on, which we have discussed in the past, and that's probably the test, and we might not know that until all the facts are out. But anyway, so that's a different view. I was pretty impressed by it, but I can see why the other guys aren't as impressed with it. So I was only joking before with Ash. I can see what his point of view there.
Yeah, I think it's one of them where I kind of see it as a bit of a starting point, and maybe we will see some more things coming out, perhaps even the footage, that would be, the ideal thing. I've done bits of investigating cases and things like that, and you need all the information at hand, like the full footage, the original source footage, not just a still from an image, ideally testimony as well. Obviously you do this kind of stuff all the time, Ash, so you know what I'm talking about. And I think it's fair to say that there could have been perhaps a little bit more of that kind of thing. However, on the other hand, as a starting point, it's intriguing and it's got people talking, and so there's kind of different ways to look at it. What do you reckon, the other Ash?
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. Just getting to your point there, it's like trying to solve a murder with just a murder weapon, isn't it? Like, people are coming to conclusions without having the full picture. So I'm with you on that one, Frank. Yeah, it's interesting. I think we, need to put it into context, really. What's the context of it? As Dave touched upon, it's come from a military platform, an ISR platform, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance platform. So it's going to have really decent kit on board. We're not talking like it's just been recorded on someone's iPhone. So you'd like to think the military systems are actually classifying those objects, and they're able to filter out what it is and what it isn't. And if it's kind of bamboozling the experts in the military, then it's probably worth a look at. But that's if we trust what we're being told, which obviously we have no way of verifying that. So I think for now, yeah, it's interesting, but without the full clip and without that contextual information surrounding it, it's really hard to make any firm judgment on it, really. One thing I did want to say, though, is I saw something on Twitter as well with Vinny Adams, Disclosure Team. Shout out to Vinny Adams, great guy. He's put a tweet up there saying that apparently he's had an anomalous source get in touch with him, saying that they saw a similar object, or saw a video of a similar object when they were serving in the military at Qatar Air Base. And apparently this clip was from, again, in a war zone in Syria back in 2015. So, got to take that at face value. There's no way of confirming that source if they're anomalous, but it does seem to indicate that perhaps these things are being seen more regularly than we're aware of. So yeah, just thought I'd throw that in there, see what people think. But yeah, I think watch this space, really. Without the video clip, if we ever see it, we may not. It may be a classified system. It may be the video itself may be classified, or the system that's used to take it. So we may never see it. This may be all we have. Is it a little teaser to get everyone to look at their podcast and listen to their podcast? Perhaps, but you go, as Dave said, you've got to market these things in the way that it's going to get interest. So I don't begrudge them doing that, but let's see what happens. Let's not jump to conclusions like some people have. Oh, sorry, and then the other thing I did want to say was this whole water theory, and we've geolocated it, and this is the aerial shot, the satellite image. I mean, do we even know what date it was taken on, the original image? Do we know when the satellite image that the person's looked on Google was taken? I mean, they get updated a lot of times throughout the year in some locations, so it may well be that it's an old aerial satellite image shot that could be anything on the ground. So I don't know how people are jumping to conclusions that quickly. That's my take on it anyway.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think that was what was quite interesting to see sort of evolve throughout the course of the day as well, because originally people said, oh, it's a hole in the ground full of water. And then what I was saying, I was talking to a few people on Twitter about this, is it doesn't really look like the right shape and size for a hole in the ground anyway, because it's like almost the entire size of the road. And as you guys will know, if you're digging up the road, you dig up one lane and leave the other lane for traffic. So that didn't make sense. And then I think what it actually is a few other people sort of came to the same conclusion around the same time I was looking at it. It's most likely a black car, in my opinion, doing a 3-point turn. And it's like you say, Ash, just one of them where that particular shot, there was a car in the road at that moment in time, and it is a pretty weird coincidence that there's a car at the exact spot where the orb is, though. It's kind of it might just be one of them unfortunate coincidences that people have made that correlation.
Or are there enough shots of that particular location, throughout the years that you just see what you want to see and you find one that fits the narrative you want to push? That's the other.
Well, that's true. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that as the day went on, other people found other images of the exact same location without anything there. So as you say, if you comb through enough Google Earth images, you may well find one with a car turning around at that moment in time, or just driving past, or whatever it might be. So another one, it's a really good point, by the way, about Vinny, the person that had come forward to Vinny there. And it just reminded me as well, when you were saying that Ryan Graves, the former fighter pilot, most people will be aware of. He actually has witnessed these things that he's described as a cube inside of a sphere. So kind of a spherical, I guess, orb-like type of object. And those kind of things are apparently seen like every day for a period of years. And he actually replied to somebody on Twitter who'd estimated it to be about 10 to 15 feet long. I mean, again, that is a bit of a kind of, a quick estimate sort of thing. It's not particularly accurate, but Ryan had actually replied to that and saying it looks pretty close to the 5 to 15 foot estimate for the East Coast events. So I thought that was quite interesting as well. And yeah, it's an intriguing one. Orbs and spheres. We'll see what comes of it, eh? But anyone got anything else to add on the orbs?
I think we've got a good range of views there, though, didn't we? It's quite a lot for the listeners to go out there. So it's a pays your money, takes your choice.
I have one more thing. Mick West, how the hell has he worked out the focus settings and stuff? He doesn't even know what bit of kit's been used. So I don't know how he can come to conclusions based on the focus settings and all that. It's ridiculous. He doesn't know what kit was used. He doesn't know anything about those optical systems. That's what.
What did he say it was? Has he said what he thinks it is?
I think Mick West's best estimate was that it's not something on the ground, but he thinks it's probably some kind of metallic balloon.
Right.
But again, I think we're just going to have to wait and see on that one, aren't we? Really,
he didn't rule out a drop of water though as well, and he said something about a parallax view. So that's where it's starting to get a little hilarious, really. But there you go. I mean, I'm not a great lover of Mr. West, so maybe I'm being a little biased.
I mean, do we really think these £1 million worth of military kit can't filter those out? I mean, that's I'll just leave you with that thought. We're spending a lot of money on this kit. It's going to be hard to tell the difference between a drop of rain or an insect. Anyway,
I think, Frank, you should make a bit of UFO Thinker and humble pie. And if any of us turn out to be wrong in about 6 months, we can eat it live on air or something like that. After it tastes nice or whatever. Pursuit of the Paranormal, UFO Thinker pie, humble pie.
Or like a revisited episode.
Yeah, I think I might have a few slices there. So maybe not. I don't know.
I would definitely. I think.
Well, I think we'll probably all have to have a small slice, and but. at the end of the day, the full picture is going to emerge over time, isn't it? At the end of them, we're probably all wrong about some aspects, and that's why it's good to have the differing views, because at the end of the day, all the various people that listen to the podcast, every single view that's slightly different, there'll be somebody out there going, yeah, that's what I was thinking, and that's what UFO Twitter's like. If you open up Twitter and you scroll through, you'll see all these various different ideas being represented. So yeah, it's good to include all of that. Anyway, we'll move on from that then. So back to the actual kind of scheduled things that we were going to be talking about, which is that January has been a pretty intense month overall for international UAP related things, although not much going on in the UK. As always, some things never change despite the new year. I don't think there's much chance of Rishi Sunak doing anything to advance the topic in this country imminently, but I could be wrong. Maybe they're holding closed-door meetings as we speak, but I think on the balance of probability, it's not very likely. So we look around the world to see what's happening in the hopes that some of it might have a knock-on effect on us here in the UK one day. So in the US, which is, after all, our closest ally, who we enjoy a special relationship with, has finally delivered on the UAP report, which has been long anticipated. So the report was originally due on October the 31st of 2022, which didn't happen, and anyone with an interest in UFOs has had to wait nearly 2.5 months for the report to eventually come out. And in that time, an entire subgenre of memes and jokes has sprung up to fill the void as we all waited to see what was going to happen. So the report finally arrived, and, well, it was definitely not a game changer. I think that's safe to say. Some have said that it was a total nothing burger. Some have found some interesting parts, which, might have been a bit overlooked. But I think on balance, there wasn't really a lot in there to get excited about beyond what has been said in the past in the last report and whatnot. What was new, though, was the up-to-date numbers of reports, and I'd say that does represent progress of sorts. Since the original task force cut-off reports at the 5th of March 2021, Arrow received a total of 247 new UAP reports, and an additional 119 UAP reports on events that occurred before that cutoff of 5th of March 2021, but they weren't included in the original preliminary assessment. So those have been added to the total, and these 366 additional reports, when combined with the original 144 reports that were in the preliminary assessment, bring the total UAP reports catalogued to 510. In terms of resolving the cases, no more of the original 144 cases from the task force report were solved, which I suppose is quite interesting in itself, especially since we've heard that most of these had multiple sensors and there were relatively high information cases. In terms of the new reports, Arrow's initial analysis and characterization of these 366 new reports, which was apparently informed by a multi-agency process, judged more than half of these as exhibiting unremarkable characteristics, 26 as unmanned aircraft systems, 163 as balloons or balloon-like entities, which a lot of people have had a laugh about that little bit of wording, and some of them as clutter and whatnot. But that leaves 171 unsolved cases, in addition to that original 144 cases that were originally unsolved in the last report. And the new report states that some of these uncharacterized UAP appear to have demonstrated unusual flight characteristics or performance capabilities and require further analysis, which was kind of one of the more interesting points in there that people picked up on. So a couple of other quick points were that the clear statement that, quote, UAP pose a safety of flight and collision hazard to air assets, unquote, which suggests that we're not looking at sort of sensor error and they're taking flight safety issues quite seriously. I thought that was a good point in there. And overall, I sort of felt that the report was worded very deliberately vague and ambiguous. But there are some of those interesting points I've just mentioned if you sort of look hard enough. And also worth bearing in mind that this report was fulfilling the requirements of the previous legislation and not the most recent one, which was signed into law just basically a couple of weeks ago. So the next report will be very interesting. But interested to hear what you guys reckon about all of that. It is a couple of weeks ago, I suppose, now, but it'd still be good to hear what you guys reckon. I think we'll all probably have some different takes once again. So we'll start with you, Dave. What do you reckon, mate?
Oh, I thought you might start with Greg there. But anyway, yes. Yeah, anyway, yeah, well, I did talk about it a little bit when it come out. But basically, it was 2.5 months late, nearly 3. I thought it was poor detail given the delay. Don't think it was what Congress intended because of the published document. It had lots of detail, a public document, I should say. It's got lots of detail on the process, but very, very little on the facts. So it was like some massive sandwich that you get at some rubbish shop with a load of bread and a tiny little bit of filling. Rubbish. So it did have the paragraph that was interesting, was 2 paragraphs interesting. It had 171. It's of the new sightings, just under half, they couldn't explain, 171 of them, and an unspecified number. They use the word some very judiciously, but that could mean any number, with unexplained performance. So that was really significant. And that's given that they're new reports where the pilots are looking at everything. So clearly, it's not going to be the same hit rate as the first report where it was just anomalous things they were looking at. It also confirmed, interestingly, drones were only 7% of the total sightings. So anybody coming out saying it's all Chinese drones now has got a lot to think about. But for me, overall, if you look at the entire things that have been reported, 61% are now unexplained. And so I think it did say something, but it was a real disappointment. And there was no explanation of those 171 elephants in the room. No explanation at all. He just ignored it, didn't say anything. A public report should at least go into non-classified detail about what they were, what the options were, and give the public something to bite on. And so for me, for Kirkpatrick, who, I'm not a great lover of him because I think he's either doesn't believe it himself or they put him in there to try and nobble it. I might be wrong, but that's my view. I think that was his first big test. He just signed the act whereby the OU, whatever it is, OUSD, they're not responsible anymore. He's reporting directly to the heads of the departments. So it was his first big test for me. He could break the shackles and be truthful, and he failed that test for me. His foot dragged all the time, and he didn't produce that report. Now, in fairness to him, because somebody's got to be fair to him, I suppose, there is an argument that this report was under the old regime, the old 2022 NDA regime, and so he had to do it in a certain way. There'd been a lot of fighting, and so maybe that was all he could produce. So maybe the next report is his real test, if you want to be very generous, and maybe perhaps this one his hands were tied a little bit. But I would say he has got my patience is wearing very thin with him. I'll be honest with you, I'm sure he's really bothered about that. But anyway, but it is wearing thin with him, and I think that he's obviously got to do better along this. And I suppose he did a presentation to the aeronautical, I forget what they were, but they were like sort of a flight specialised people. I'm sure you'll tell me in a minute, Frank, who it was. And that was a bit more of himself. He talked about the threat. He acknowledged it was ubiquitous and real, and there was threats to different elements. So he has demonstrated his thought about it. So we may see something different from him, but there's obviously still a conflict going on internally inside the DOE and the forces of non-disclosure and disclosure. I know I keep going on about that. I do think it's true, and I think basically these two positions can't hold for very long. You've got Chris Mellon on the one side saying we're going to have hearings, it's fantastic, we've got alien material, more, and then you've got on the other side Scott Bray, Ronald Moultrie, and this report saying, oh well, I don't know about this, nothing here. Those two positions cannot hold indefinitely. So I think we're going to see something happen at the time. And I think it wasn't good enough, basically, and it's too much jam tomorrow. So I think he's in the last chance saloon, as it were, and it's UAP man versus Lex Moultrie. So there you go.
There we go. Yeah, it was the Transportation Research Board that he did that.
Keep forgetting that
for.
what it was.
Yeah, I don't think it's a particularly well-known organisation, to be honest. It's not one I'm particularly familiar with, but that was. I think it was the 11th of January. think it's an American date format, but I think I've got that one right there. But yeah, the Transportation Research Board it was. And yeah, definitely a lot more interesting insight into, what's going on behind the scenes than what they were willing to go into in the actual report itself. But yeah, what do you reckon, Ash Ellis?
Yeah, I mean, I love numbers and figures and data and stuff like that. So we don't get too much, but when you just look at the numbers, like since the March 21, so you're talking 18 months or so, you've got like a new report coming more than once a week. And this is from like aviators, pilots, operators, whatever, seeing something and reporting it more than one a week. Even though, like, say, around half of them been identified, they're reporting it. And there's a part in the report which says about the increase in reports due to the sort of destigmatizing the thing. And it is only going to be just a start. And I think when maybe other pilots and other areas of the military see that there's more reports coming in, they'll be more inclined to report them. Because obviously the peers are reporting it as well now. So the figures are interesting. I didn't think it'd be so high. I was thinking we might only see a handful, but to have like 200 in just over a year is much more than I thought there would be. So that's interesting. And again, the wording. So it's not much, but I quite liked it. And I know it got a lot of sort of the nothing to it, whereas I thought the opposite for once, where I thought actually I think there's good stuff in this, and I think we've got much more to look forward to.
Wow, the tables have turned. Ash super positive about the report. Can't believe it. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. I mean, if you're into like statistics about, sightings and things like that, which is, like I say, it's your kind of bread and butter, I suppose, isn't it? It's definitely, it must be nice to sort of see that kind of thing taking shape. I suppose like the numbers were sort of there presented in the report, but there wasn't really any specific details of the actual sightings themselves. I think it's probably what a lot of people were hoping to see. But yeah, it's kind of, maybe we'll see a little bit more of that in the following reports. If I remember rightly, I've not got the wording in front of me, but I think there is something that sort of suggests that those 171 cases may end up being, looked into a bit more. Well, they will be looked into a bit more, but perhaps some of the details on those might actually end up coming out in future reports.
Yeah,
so
that's the thing as well, because they say they sort of remain unidentified as of now, but we don't know what their process is. We don't know what or how or who is sort of doing the actual investigation into these reports. So we don't know if it's just a quick skim. Oh, I can't see that that's a balloon or something, so let's put it on identified pile without actually having a proper look at these reports. So until, again, just more information, until we get that, there's not much we can do. But like I say, it's something, and I think it won't hold our breath. I think if we don't expect much, and if we get something good, then it's just a bonus.
Yeah, I'm a little bit hopeful about that 171 reports as well. There's been a little bit of debate. I've seen a few people talking about this on Twitter, saying like that those, we don't exactly know what they've got on those. But the way I read that was the way that Bray and Moultrie talked about this at the hearing was that they want to basically look into the cases that are the most intriguing and the most compelling, that they have got multiple sensor data and things like that. And I kind of read the way that they'd filtered off the wheat from the chaff as basically being like some of them that were, we've characterized it as a balloon, it's probably this, probably that, and they've left 171 that are the most interesting. And maybe I'm being a bit optimistic there, but the way that they've talked about the processes that they go through at the hearing and that kind of thing, and reading that report, I'm kind of hoping, but I think it may actually be the way that they're doing it, that those cases are actually quite interesting. They could have multiple sensors that have picked them up. It doesn't specifically say that, but if you think about what they've said in the past at the hearing as to how they're approaching this, it could well be the case. There's been a lot of debate where people have saying that, they haven't specifically said they've got multiple sensor data on those cases, which they didn't. They didn't say that explicitly in the report, but we'll find out as time goes along, I suppose. What do you reckon?
Hopefully.
What do you reckon the other Ash?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's fulfilled the requirement it needed to do, isn't it? It's ticked the box. I think going back to what Dave alluded to, the next report is kind of the one we need to judge them by, really, because that's got the new legislation in there. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was redacted. It was completely as expected from my point of view. Wasn't expecting it to be earth-shattering. You've kind of got to go line by line and pick out those salient points. Like Ash was just saying, there was some interesting stuff in there if you pick those bits out. I mean, the bits that I found quite interesting was the mention of the kind of ongoing collaboration with international partners. I'm always interested in things from a UK perspective, and obviously being sort of closest allies with the US. I would imagine there's some UK involvement there, and particularly as it mentioned Five Eyes as well. Obviously, we're a key component of that and a key strategic ally. And the way it said, I think the words were maintained communication with international partners or something like that, or international. I've got the word in here. Yeah. ODNI and Arrow have maintained communication with our allied partners. So that suggests that it's not, this isn't something new. This isn't a new function. They've been doing it for some time. So it would be really interesting to find out what that is and where in the UK kind of intelligence community that's landing. Because, as we all know, they've been definitely silent on this for some time. So, there were some interesting bits in there. The international bit is, particularly of interest to me. But let's see what they come back with on the next report. I think we need to judge them by that really, and moving forward, that kind of needs to set the goal, set the standard really, and we'll go from there. Yeah, let's see what happens. I don't know. I wasn't expecting too much. It kind of, for me, it ticked the boxes what it was meant to do, and let's move on. I'm sure there's better stuff coming. Hopefully.
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be an interesting year. I mean, there's been a lot of talk on Twitter. 2023 is going to be a mega year and all this kind of thing. Some of that might be a little bit overblown, but having said that, I do think there are a lot of very interesting areas to keep an eye on. I think, is it the end of June? The next report's due. If I remember that rightly, it's either June or So I think it's the right at the end of June. So are we going to see it in June? Based off the way this has gone, perhaps not, but certainly this year, I would expect that we will see another report. So we'll see what they make of them other cases and what else they reveal in that one. What do you reckon, Greg? Are you feeling hopeful?
Well, yeah. So I think you guys covered most of it. I was going through it and I picked out a few bits that from like the normal person who is not the UFO expert like you guys are. That sprung sort of out of the page to me. That even on page 1, where they talked about UAP events continue to occur in restricted or sensitive aerospace. So again, they're recognizing that, but also that it says that may be a collection bias just due to where they're getting the information from. So it could still be that they're elsewhere, but because the reports are coming in from people who are concentrating their collection of data from those areas, that's like collection bias. It also still highlights not only the safety of flight concern, but also adversary collection activity. So they're still not ruling out foreign adversaries, although it doesn't say foreign adversary this time. It just says adversary. So, but I do think if it was foreign adversary like China or Russia, we would have known about it by now, because I don't think, as we've mentioned on previous roundtables, that if Putin had some kind of technology like this, I think he'd be showing it off to the world by now, and we'd have all been annihilated. So I don't think it's that. I was also interested where he talked about the different agencies that were involved. NASA was mentioned, and that NASA have got their own sort of thing going on. So it was interesting to see NASA mentioned there from my point of view. Then going on to page 6, it said regarding health concerns. Now, there was different ways that you could take this. It says, regarding health concerns, there have been no encounters with UAP confirmed to contribute directly to adverse health-related effects to the observer. So are they suggesting that there have been encounters with UAP, but because they haven't resulted in sickness or any kind of health-related issue, that's how they can word it, by saying that no encounter has caused health-related issues. So I don't know if that's... So maybe that's just me reading more into it than I probably should be.
Yeah, I think I brought a little note about that, actually. I think, So the way that the quote was in the actual report was quote, regarding health concerns, that there have also been no encounters with UAP confirmed to contribute directly to adverse health related effects to the observers, unquote. So yeah, it's a weird one. I mean, I took that as a bit of an example of like tricky wording, because like this report is relating to the findings of this office, which is pretty newly established, and there have been pretty well documented cases of health effects in general, but this office probably hasn't got that data. The data exists, but just not within the holdings of the task force, as Bray said. I think he said something about crash debris. He was asked about, crashed vehicles or technology, and he said there are no retrieved materials within the holdings of the task force. Well, it's like nobody thought that the task force has got a saucer in the back, did they? You know what I mean? There's like two blokes. I don't think they're going to have really got all that stuff in there. So yeah, I sort of took it as it's relating specifically to the cases that have been reported, that there aren't any. And again, there's loads of wording in there like contribute directly. What so has there been indirect, health concerns caused by these things? And as I say, I think it does relate specifically to, the ones that have been reported to this office. And most of those are probably going to be quite distant, I would imagine anyway, and quite different to some of the more historic ones. I think Kit Green and Gary Nolan probably beg to differ in the bigger picture as to whether or not there's been, documented cases. But yeah, it all depends kind of how you interpret the wording, and I think it's sort of in some cases deliberately vague for that reason, so you can basically just take what you want from it, sort of thing, in a way, isn't it? Anything else you wanted to add, Greg?
No, that was it mainly. That was it. It was an interesting report for me. It was very wordy, I must say, and a lot of it I had to reread a few times because it seemed to be a lot more jargon in it this time. But yeah, I think from those bits that I pulled out, it was an interesting report. So kudos to them. Yeah,
good to see reports in general, innit, at the end of the day. I mean, if someone would have said, 3-4 years ago that we'd even be getting reports, we'd probably be quite chuffed with that. And they're not completely trying to downplay it. Like, they did acknowledge that there is a safety concern there of flight safety and so on. And, and like you said, Ash Ellis there, there are a lot of these reports. It's not like they've said, yeah, we had like 5 or 6 come in, sort of thing. We're talking about like hundreds, and actually hundreds unsolved as well. So, yeah, pretty interesting. Not a total game changer, but good that we're getting reports, and it's not going to be the last of them. So we'll see how it plays out in the future, eh? Anyone else got anything they want to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say on the health effects thing. Yeah, I think that report, this report has just come out, is obviously referencing the stuff like you were saying, Frank, that's just been reported to that office during that time period. I think the next one, if I'm not mistaken, is the one that's going back throughout history. Is that correct? Or it has the scope to?
Well, I think that one's due within a year and a half, so it may be some time before we see that one.
But something is coming, and that'll be the more interesting one, because then that could potentially touch upon, like John Burroughs, the Rendlesham case, because we know for a fact, the battle he had to get his pension through the Veteran Affairs and things like that. We know for a fact there's people out there, and as you were mentioning, Kit Green, etc., that have actually investigated these sort of things. So that would be the more interesting one, I think, that historical look. And interestingly, just on a side note, the John Burroughs Rendlesham incident and the Cash Landrum incident, where again other people were exposed to UAP related radiation, although they didn't win theirs because they couldn't prove that it was anything military. But yeah, they were just days apart. So I think there's a lot of interesting health effect type stuff coming down the line, hopefully. How much of it we'll actually see in the report as the average Joe member of public, I don't know. But yeah, they can't just slide that one under the radar and expect no one to be interested in it, because there are historic cases, loads of them.
But they said they look at the reports quarterly, if you remember. So what they said, the secret ones or confidential ones, they promised they might look into it in more detail. So that was like the sop to the masses, really, wasn't it? So they might look at some of them. I mean, you're right, that historical one will be about a year and a half. But yeah, that will be interesting as that comes up on the rails. And you were right, Frank. Bray, he used that to great effect in the hearings. He very carefully referred to, he didn't know of anything in that study, when we all knew that study was about 0.01% of all the information. So he pulled the same trick again. It's interesting listening to us all, though. So the consensus seems to be something, and it's a good start, even though it's not what we want to see. But I think it's a bit of a barometer of how this fight is going internally. And I think next time will tell us who's winning, because if you look at the NDAA, which you don't want to do too much, I know, but the noose is sort of tightening on the ways they can get out of it. And so I think Kirkpatrick may be faced with a decision. He's reporting to these people, and he's going to have to either put up or he's going to have to say, isn't he? Or you have to resign, because his head's on the block if he doesn't do it next time. I'm pretty sure of that, because of the way it's written. So this report maybe turn out to be our little barometer as we look at this. Well, we'll probably all be very old by the time he has finished reading it, but anyway.
Yeah, it'll be the Round Table episode 364. So finally getting some answers. Right. So moving on then. So San Marino, another international UAP related thing that's been going on. So on the 19th of January 2023, the Parliament of San Marino voted in favour to participate in Project Titan, meaning San Marino will submit a proposal to the UN for the creation of a permanent office tasked with the preparation of periodic global conferences dedicated to the scientific study of UFOs. So, what is San Marino? San Marino is officially the Republic of San Marino, also known as the most serene Republic of San Marino, is the fifth smallest country in the world, apparently, and a European microstate in southern Europe, enclaved by Italy. A little bit like the Vatican, where it's kind of legally its own country and makes its own laws and whatnot. And it's located in the northeastern side of the Apennine Mountains. And it's quite small in terms of the area, just over 61 square kilometres, and has a population of 33,562, to be precise. So clearly pretty small country, one of the smallest, but if we go off country size as to who's the most important, then the UK is probably quite low down on that list. It's quite clear that the UK has a fair bit of clout on the world stage, despite being quite small compared to some in terms of our population size. And as we know, relatively small countries can do a lot in the world, despite size. In fact, San Marino actually also hosted the International Symposium on AIDS in October 1988, where it sort of used its position to tackle a big issue facing the world. Perhaps it could be seen as a similar thing that it's doing now, taking a difficult issue that means a lot to a lot of people and bringing that to the attention of the rest of the world. So the proposal will now be submitted to the UN's Secretary General before undergoing a preliminary examination and discussion. Following this, the proposal will be submitted to a vote at the General Assembly. So it's not obviously a done deal as such, but this is just a good step in the process along the way. And Project Titan was actually created and managed by Paolo Ghizzardi on behalf of the, bear with me on this one, Centro Ufologico Nazionale of Italy. I actually did all right there, which is Italy's main ufological organisation, and also the International Coalition for Extraterrestrial Research, ISA. And Paolo Ghizzardi had commented recently, today the nation of San Marino has made a momentous decision, meaning the UFO phenomenon will now be discussed where it belongs, at the United Nations, the highest council of humanity. And hopefully this topic can unite our planet and counter our tendency for conflict. And Bob Salas had also tweeted, here is a very rough schedule going forward with Titan. Mid-September 2023 will be the submission of the San Marino proposal to the UN Secretary General Office, and then somewhere from October 23 onwards is the examination by the UN Commission, and then likely November-December 23 is going to be the vote by the UN General Assembly. So still plenty of steps in this process to go, but another interesting area to keep an eye on. So, what are you guys' thoughts on all of that? And we'll maybe start with Ash Ellis, if you're up for that, mate.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about ISA. I'm not sure a lot of people might not know sort of that organisation, but Dave Holdren, who's a good friend of mine, has been on our podcast a few times. He's the Birmingham UFO group chairman. He's like the vice president on the UK arm of ISA. And like you say, ISA stands for the International Coalition of Extraterrestrial Research. So it's obviously a really good thing. Get the UN involved, sort of keep pushing it on that global scale. But the concern for me is that side of it. ISA, as their whole foundation, concentrates on the extraterrestrial sort of side of the phenomena. The mission statement itself is preparing for contact. And they're sort of, what they do is sort of trying to prepare the world for when we make contact with extraterrestrials. And to become a member of ISA, they all took an oath to basically, they believe that UFOs are extraterrestrial in nature, and that's where it's coming from, and that they believe that there is an ET presence on Earth. All well and good. That's my sort of preferred theory. But when you're talking government side of things, it's hard enough to get them to engage when it's just anomalous phenomena. While the needs are saying it's extraterrestrial, we need to be talking about aliens effectively. So it's really good what they're doing. It'd be interesting to see it sort of unfold over the next few months and years. And kudos to San Marino for putting it out there and sort of taking a part in it. But that, for me, that my concern is that side of it where the governments are going to take it seriously. That whole extraterrestrial sort of side of it is going to be a hard sell, even harder than, like you say, just UFO or UAP. So that's my sort of initial thoughts on it. Just a bit of background for people that might not know sort of what ISA is.
Yeah, and I believe, I can't remember the exact date that it happened, but there was a previous time that something like this was proposed at the UN, and I believe it was the UK or Britain that actually shot it down. So there's been some speculation as to whether we might end up, we as the UK, certainly not us on this podcast, but the UK might end up shooting it down and throwing a spanner in the works again. And I suppose particularly with that, like you were saying there, the specific references to extraterrestrial life and whatnot, perhaps that could be, used as a justification if somebody did want to nobble it. But, got to be hopeful that it won't happen, but got to be realistic as well at the same time. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, as they say. What do you reckon, the other Ash? Any thoughts, mate, on that?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't aware of the intricacies that Ash has just mentioned, so that's quite interesting. I just checked the ISA website. Yeah, it does specifically say about extraterrestrial, so extraterrestrial presence. So it kind of negates all the other stuff. It's sort of pigeonholing exactly what they're all about. Which, I mean, personally, I've got a very open mind of what the phenomena may or may not be. It's probably multiple phenomena rather than one single thing, but that's a whole other story. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a good thing, isn't it? If it gets a conversation going on a global stage, in front of the right people, at top levels of government, then I think it can only be a good thing. But yeah, there's still a lot of stages to go, as you mentioned, Frank. It isn't set in stone. There's still have a lot of votes to happen, and lots of different committees and boards to go through. So watch this space, I guess, see what happens. And I think it was, the UK back in 1978. I think it was Grenada that tried to put it forward in front of the UN, and it got slapped down by the UK. So who knows? Will another big player do that and just say, no, you're not doing it, little San Marino? We don't want to know about that. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But I'm hopeful, but I'm also a realist, and there's probably a reason why it hasn't been discussed since 1978. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It was 1978. I was just checking it. And yeah, it was us. We're the guilty parties as the UK. And I don't know. I'm hopeful. Maybe things have changed. But at the same time, not exactly putting all my eggs in that basket just yet. What do you reckon, Dave?
Yeah, very good point of Ash's on that ISA. I mean, they had a bit of a checkered history, ISA. I like Dave. I think Dave's great, and a lot of the people are really good. So don't want to slag them off as an organisation. But they did have some links. If you remember, China and Russia were very interested, particularly China, and they had the whole thing at Beijing. I think they had the first conference. And there's a little bit of a worry. There's a lot of ufologists who are good ufologists, some who are more on the fringe, we might say, going over to Beijing, giving shaking hands with the People's Republic and all. It wasn't a great look, but maybe I'm being a bit whatever funny there about that. But I do think Ash's central point about him, I think that's a really good point. The sort of model we've seen in the US of just saying it's an issue, we need to deal with it, and not jumping down one particular rabbit hole or saying he's a really good lesson. And plus the fact politicians can deal with the unknown and it's a threat, everybody can get behind that. It's a bit more different if you're saying from the back it's extraterrestrials and that's it. And so I think that's a really good point. I think fortunately though, wiser sort of heads have prevailed. You've got Paolo Guzzardi. I always have trouble saying it. I murdered it last time on the Ghost of Christmas Present. Anyway, I know that. But anyway, he's a EU diplomat. He's an Italian diplomat, and he's also made links to the EU as well. So he's a very steady hand. You've seen sort of Lou Elizondo getting stuck into it. So I suspect if there's any, well, that's a good point, actually, it might not be, but I think they'll manage that particular message. Because if it's going to go to the UN, it goes in mid-September. They've got to put a proposal in. They decide on it in October. It may be decision in December. This is 2023, I should say. So they're going to have something pretty reasonable, no matter what, And I think if they say, the ET brothers are coming, I'm exaggerating, but they're coming down to see us and we better get used to it. That's not going to fly, is it? And it'll get knocked down easier than it did in 78. It was Grenada 78. And there's some unkind voices say that the UK did that at the US's behest. But they actually not. So there may be attempts to nobble it again. So they want it to be fairly fireproof, I would have said. So anyway, I think it's a really good thing. And the reason I think it's a good thing is because the US has effectively had a stranglehold on this subject internationally for ages. We long suspected the Allies don't say anything. They don't say anything in South America. The UK, the Five Eyes don't say anything. The Japanese have only recently, and it's all the US military, particularly the Department of Defense and the State Department, have been controlling it along with the CIA. So I think if this is successful, it broadens the debate on that, makes it more international and puts pressure on the people who want to keep this secret to do something. And I think it's a deliberate tactic. That's why Lou Elizondo's got behind it, as a deliberate tactic to put pressure on the people in the US to sort of open it, as well as open it for its own right. And I do think that if Lou Elizondo was some sort of government stooge, as he's often portrayed, and it's all some sort of vast conspiracy, that's the one thing he wouldn't do, is this. Because there's no mileage in this for the US government or whatever. This is a threat to what they're going to do. And I think this sort of proof for me, when I think about Lou, I think he's on the level and everything anyway, as you know. But I think this is one of the biggest proofs of his sort of credentials, really. So anyway, I don't want to go down that particular, but I think the thing is it's going to broaden that international debate and take it out of the hands of the close control and make it more democratic and accountable. So they either get on the shit train in the manner they want to, or they might see the train leaving the station. These are the people who are trying to control it. And I think the question for us is, politically, on the UFO front, is this some sort of stalking horse, this UN gambit, to sort of get the forces of disclosure out there? Or is it actually a big thing in its own right and it's a genuine thing? Because it could be both. It could be both. It could be one or the other. So I think it's a great thing, and I hope it happens. I think there's difficulties managing the Russian and Chinese involvement and the whole internationalism of the UN, where you have to do business with people you don't like. But I also think it may be a piece in this big chess game of disclosure as well. And it's a real threat to the people who want to keep it quiet. And so I think it's brilliant, and long may it continue. But there's a long way to go, as you all say.
Yeah, definitely some really good points there, mate. I think it's interesting what you were saying about the UK slapping down the previous UN thing as well at the behest of the United States. I've often wondered if it's like a bit of a good cop, bad cop thing going on with the United States and the UK, where we're basically at the highest levels collaborating, on this stuff, and they play the role of kind of being like, yeah, we're open-minded about it. We're going to be more transparent and we're going to do these reports. It's going to be cool. And then behind closed doors, they're saying like, yeah, we said all that stuff, and now you, the UK, you can go and slap down this UN thing, you can do all the rest of it, But anyway, we don't know for sure. That's the thing, isn't it? All happens behind the curtain of secrecy, so we'll never really know. But Greg, I'm sorry, mate. You've been last every time today, mate. Next time
That's okay.
You're going first next month every
Quite
time.
right.
So what do you think?
No, it's all good. So San Marino is quite a unique place, and anybody that knows and follows UK football, we've had some World Cup qualifiers against them and beaten them convincingly, and had goals scored against us, and they're part-timers. So they are quite a small speck on what is essentially a very big world. So there wasn't particularly a country or a province that I would expect to ever come out with that kind of thing. But if anything can keep sort of the UAP momentum going, I suppose trying to get a UN conference in place is good. However, like you mentioned, Dave, with Russia, I was looking into this, and Russia and China came up for some symposiums that were trying to take place in 2018 and 19, and then COVID hit. So there was a lot of Chinese and Russian cosmonauts that were invited. Gary Hesseltine was over there, I believe. So there seems to be a lot of Chinese agenda or backing for a lot of the previous versions of this. And I think in the current world climate, I think Russia and China are not exactly friends with anybody else in the world apart from themselves. So I think it'll just probably get slapped down just for that, because behind the scenes, we'll see who the actual backers are, and everybody will just knock it on the head and say we've got bigger things to worry about on a global stage at the moment. But that's just my opinion. I just don't think it'll see the light of day. But it's a nice thing to see.
Yeah, it's a good point. Some of the other, I hadn't really considered that, to be honest, but some of the other global tensions and things like that, how that could play into things like that, the various reasons that they might want to slap that down. So yeah, but we'll see. It's another one, isn't it, where sort of like interesting beginnings, but how it unfolds throughout the rest of the year is going to be the proof in the pudding, as it were. So anybody else got anything to add on that?
I think there was. I think we can't go do this without commenting on Mick West's remarks about puny San Marino and who'd want to bother doing one there, and it's not even a city size. Well, I thought they were pretty bad remarks, and he made I won't say anything that bad. I thought he didn't put himself in the best light. Let's put it that way. And I also thought it showed for me that he's willing to say anything to do down anything on the topic. You'd think he'd welcome a UN study, wouldn't you, if he's confident of his case? Not try and do it down by insulting an efforts, because San Marino's a bit like Switzerland. It's done difficult conferences or conferences on issues that are a bit more apolitical, and that's been its role in the UN over the time. So you'd think it'd be something he'd support, but clearly not. It's a puny country, not worth the attention of the mighty Mick.
Indeed. Anybody want to follow that?
How can you follow that?
I don't know how you'd follow that.
Well, yeah, just before we wrap up, there's another thing, totally unrelated topic. I think actually it was you guys who we were all sort of the same lineup the time that we discussed this. Remember that NIM patch? The patch with the flying. What was it now? Was it a flying saucer or a triangle? I can't remember.
Flying saucer.
Yeah, the saucer. And there was this whole controversy with it where, the website showed the new logo and then it was claimed to have been an admin error or something like that. But just out of interest, really, I thought since we're all together, I might as well tell you about it now. I saw on Twitter the other day, there's somebody called Shannon DeSalvo, and they'd posted that when that patch thing happened, they'd actually ordered 50 of these patches. And the patches were actually listed on the 27th of July, which is 2 months before the site went live with the logo. So they'd actually bought these 50 patches. They were in stock, and the order actually arrived, and they got the patches. And then when they went to try and reorder the patches, they were told that they would need to. Let me just find the bit in the notes there. Yeah, that they would need to actually verify the affiliation with the squadron. So the patches apparently are still for sale, and as a repeat customer, this person was trying to order some more, but had to verify the association with the squadron. It's quite weird, that, isn't it? It's almost as though like it is still kind of slyly the logo, but they're just not admitting it. But people can buy it if they're affiliated with the squadron. Very strange. So yeah,
that's weird.
I just thought I'd mention it because I remember we'd all discussed that a while back, and that's an interesting little development that I just saw a couple of days ago on Twitter.
In the NDAA, if you remember, the NIM, or we've been told anyway, but NIM are going to be doing a lot of the aerial stuff. There may be a link there because there was a bit of a suspicion it was a sly wink, but they're in favour of disclosure, or the commander is, and it was a bit of a sly wink to everybody, but they thought UFOs were existing. I mean, I know that's a bit of a leap, but nonetheless, that was in the air. That Shannon, what I can't pronounce I can't remember his second name, but I think he does the UAP podcast with Rob Heavily, the military witnesses to UAP. But Lou was on. Lou's been on a couple of times, and I'm pretty sure it's them, and that's quite an interesting podcast. And they've got a few links to the military, so I think he give a couple of ways charity things. So yeah, they do quite an interesting show. And yeah, so that's very interesting. So he's got a few good connections. But yeah, it's that patch may be another little emblematic little barometer that we look at. The fate of the patch. Where is it now? Is it up or down? And what's it got on it? You know, that if they're all wearing it, we know disclosure's coming.
Yeah,
the patches are interesting, though, aren't they? I mean, like you look at some of the ones that have come out of like Groom Lake and some of the test facilities and skunk works and things. You know, there's a lot of hidden meaning in those as well. So it's a whole. You could probably talk about this in a whole show in its own right, but they are an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is that I was just checking it as you were talking there, Dave. In the 2022 report, the one we're talking about earlier, it actually states in the beginning there that this report was drafted by ODNI's NIM Aviation in conjunction with Arrow. So, I mean, it's not even particularly outrageous to suggest that, you know, an organization that deals with aviation that is literally drafting UAP reports would have a flying saucer on the patch. You know, it's cool. Why don't they just run with it? You know, everyone was excited about it. They could have sold a lot of patches. But anyway, apparently the ending of that whole thing was that Shannon, I wasn't sure if it was a guy or a girl. That's why I was saying they, but it's a guy. Is it?
I might be right. I'm just thinking it could be. I might be wrong on that, but I know those two guys mentioned that patch and had a few, so I might be making the wrong connection. The guy's name might be Shannon Scott. I'm not sure. So don't set me up on that. They did mention it, but I don't know, Frank. I've just been looking it up now. I'm not sure now.
I'm not sure which, but anyway, I suppose that's beside the point. But the thing is that whoever this particular person was told the site that they weren't affiliated with the squadron, but that wasn't an issue in the past. And then they were told, quote, "We're sorry, but because you are not affiliated with the squadron, we'll need to cancel the order. Please understand that we can't sell specially produced products to those outside of the squadron/organization. If you were able to purchase before, we apologize because it was overlooked." So, yeah, a bit of a weird one, isn't it?
Cobblers.
So there we go. Yeah, I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I just thought it was an intriguing thing to add to the, when we talked about it the last time.
I mean, just quickly on that, a lot of these military units. I mean, it happens in military, law enforcement, all that kind of stuff. If you're in like a specialist unit, you kind of will make your own unofficial patches as well. So it may well be that a unit's they're kind of involved in that collection of intelligence and looking at those threats, and they thought, well, let's just make a cool patch and. They're using the supply they use for all their normal patches, and that it could be something as innocuous as that, but we just don't know. It's interesting to speculate, though.
Yeah, I suppose the question then would be, how did it end up on the site? But then that could have actually been an error. And
but it had a bloody big flying saucer on it, didn't it? And then when it was spotted, he killed it, didn't he? That's the fact, isn't it? So yeah. I think we can speculate. I think we know why they. Well, maybe I'm wrong, but that's why they chopped it. Big flying saucer. What's that? Oh, we better get rid of that, then, haven't we?
Yeah, it was probably never meant to see the light of day on a public-facing website, was it?
I think you're right there. I think you're right there, Ash. I do agree with that.
Yeah. I tell you what, I wish I'd got one of them
Yeah,
patches
man.
now, though, like when they were still available. I wonder if there's anyone we can reach out to and I'll get a patch.
I don't know. They're probably going for some on eBay.
Yeah, exactly. They will be after disclosure happens anyway, won't they? Anyway, right. I think we'll have to leave it there for now. So, it's been good as always, everybody. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Been fantastic.
Thank
Really
you.
enjoyed it.
See you next time.
Right, nice one. Till next
See ya.
time.
See ya.
Bye.
UFO Round Table. The UFO Thinker and Pursuit of the Paranormal podcasts.